The scene is so mundane that the mind almost refuses to register it. It is 7:14 p.m. on a Tuesday, and the gym exists in that specific purgatory between the after-work rush and the late-night grind. The air is thick with the scent of rubber flooring, chalk dust, and the faint, acrid tang of ammonia-based cleaner. Amidst the clatter of iron plates and the low, rhythmic hum of treadmills, a specific sequence of events unfolds. A man, let's call him Subject A, finishes his final set of incline dumbbell press. His chest heaves slightly, the vascularity in his forearms fading as the blood retreats from the muscle. Most people at this juncture are already mentally checked out, scrolling through a playlist or calculating the protein content of the meal waiting in the car. But Subject A does not rush. He stands, places the heavy dumbbells on the floor with a controlled thud, and then walks to the sanitation station. He retrieves 2 paper towels, applies a precise amount of spray, and returns to the bench. He wipes the vinyl. Not a cursory, half-hearted flick of the wrist to move the sweat around, but a deliberate overlapping pass that covers the entire surface area, where his back and head made contact. The paper towels are then discarded in a nearby bin. It is an act that consumes perhaps 11 seconds of his life. It is an act that goes unwitnessed by all but the most observant eye. And yet, within the parameters of that simple wipe-down, lies a blueprint of character so precise that psychologists have spent decades quantifying its markers. To the untrained observer, this behavior is merely a function of a posted sign. Mere wipe-down equipment. It is a rule, and rules are followed. But the human relationship with rules is a labyrinth, not a straight line. The existence of a directive does not guarantee compliance. In fact, in environments devoid of visible authority, the likelihood of adherence plummets. Why then does Subject A clean the bench when no one is watching? Why does he perform this small, tedious act when the social reward of a head nod from a staff member is absent and the penalty of a public shaming is 0? This is the question that transforms a moment of hygiene into a revelation of psychology. We are accustomed to judging character by grand gestures, the donation made public, the crisis heroically averted. But these events are often performative or reactive. The true architecture of a person is found in the micro-interactions they have with the inanimate world when they believe they are unobserved. To understand the cleaner of the bench, we must first turn to the bedrock of modern personality science, the Big 5 personality traits. Within this framework, the act points most directly to the trait of conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is not merely about being neat. It is the personality domain that governs impulse control, organization, and, most critically, duty. It is the internal mechanism that separates the intended action from the completed action. Individuals high in conscientiousness are not driven by the fear of getting caught. They are driven by an internalized standard of order. They experience a subtle, almost imperceptible psychological friction, a cognitive dissonance, when they leave a task incomplete. The wet saline stain left on a black vinyl bench is a form of disorder. To the high conscientiousness mind, this is not a neutral state. It is an open loop, an error in the matrix that requires closing. The 11 seconds spent wiping it down are not a burden. They are the satisfying click of a latch catching. Research consistently demonstrates that this micro-level tidiness is a robust predictor of long-term life outcomes. A meta-analysis published in Health Psychology found that higher conscientiousness in young adulthood predicts longevity decades later, often mediated by the simple cumulative effect of making the slightly more effortful prosocial choice, like wiping a bench or flossing teeth. But there is a second, and perhaps more surprising, layer to this gym behavior. It is not solely a function of self-regulation, it is also an expression of agreeableness, specifically its sub-facet of cooperation and consideration for others. The bench cleaner is not just tidying their own space, they are preparing the environment for an anonymous stranger. This is the definition of prosocial behavior, actions intended to benefit others without the immediate expectation of reciprocation. It is a quiet, utilitarian form of altruism. The next person to use that bench will not know Subject A's name. They will simply sit down on a dry surface and begin their set, completely unaware that an act of invisible labor has just been performed on their behalf. This awareness of the generalized other is a marker of high emotional intelligence and social maturity. It acknowledges that the gym is a commons, a shared resource, and that the depletion of that commons, via sweat residue and bacteria, degrades the experience for everyone. The person who does not wipe the bench is not necessarily malicious. They are simply low in the combination of conscientiousness and agreeableness. They operate within a smaller, more immediate radius of concern. Here, the gym acts as a controlled laboratory for human nature. It is a place of raw physical effort, where masks drop and the veneer of social media polish fades away. It is in this raw environment that the difference between compliance and internalization becomes starkly visible. Compliance is cleaning the bench because a trainer is staring at you. Internalization is cleaning the bench because the act of leaving it dirty feels wrong to you. One is a reaction to external pressure, the other is a reflection of the self. As we consider the weight of those 11 seconds, we must ask a deeper question. What is the cost of ignoring this small duty? And what does the willingness to carry that cost, or to shirk it, tell us about the future trajectory of a life beyond the gym floor? The difference between the one who wipes and the one who walks away is not merely a matter of politeness, it is a matter of moral architecture. To understand the psychological scaffolding of the bench cleaner, we must move beyond the surface-level traits of the Big Five and into the realm of developmental psychology. The work of Lawrence Kohlberg provides a particularly sharp lens through which to view the wet bench. Kohlberg's stages of moral development describe how humans evolve from a self-centered, a punishment-avoidant framework to a principled, ethical one. At the pre-conventional level, the individual operates on a transaction. I won't wipe the bench unless someone is watching who can punish me, or unless I want to look good. At the conventional level, they might wipe it because it's the rule here, or I want to be seen as a good member of this community. But the subject who cleans the bench in the empty, quiet hour of the evening is operating at the post-conventional level. This is the realm of internalized norms. The behavior is not contingent on a sign or a staff member. It is guided by an internal principle that states, one ought to leave a shared space in a condition equal to or better than how one found it. This is the same psychological mechanism that prevents a person from littering on a deserted hiking trail or from stealing office supplies from a company they know is over-insured. It is the voice of a self-authored identity. This concept of internalized norms is the crux of the matter. When we talk about discipline in the self-improvement sphere, we often conflate it with motivation. Motivation is the fire that gets you to the gym. It is emotional, volatile, and dependent on energy levels. Automation, however, is what gets you to wipe the bench down after a brutal workout when your legs are shaking and your lungs are burning. The person who cleans the equipment under conditions of extreme fatigue is not motivated to do so, they are programmed to do so. The behavior has been practiced and valued so deeply that it has become a cognitive reflex. It requires no executive function bargaining. It simply is. This is where the gym behavior becomes a profound metaphor for character reliability under pressure. It is relatively easy to be conscientious when you are fresh, alert, and well caffeinated. It is an entirely different matter to maintain that standard when you are depleted. Think of the person who, after a set of heavy squats that left them seeing stars, still manages to re-rack every 45-pound plate in its designated slot, or the person who, despite being late for a meeting, pauses to wipe the chalk dust off the pull-up bar. This is identity-congruent behavior. It reveals that the person's self-concept is not, I am someone who works out, but rather, I am someone who maintains order. Contrast this with the person who cleans the bench out of anxiety rather than standard. There is a fine but crucial distinction here. Some individuals clean out of a fear of social judgment or a neurotic need for control over their environment. This is not the same as the calm, prosocial conscientiousness we are analyzing. The high-anxiety cleaner feels a spike of cortisol at the sight of a smudge. The high-conscientiousness cleaner feels a quiet, almost serene sense of duty. One is driven by fear, the other by an internal compass. The outcome is the same, a clean bench, but the internal experience and the long-term sustainability of the behavior is vastly different. If we follow this thread out of the gym and into the real world, the implications are staggering. The same psychological engine that powers the bench wipe powers the email response that doesn't leave a colleague hanging. It powers the project that is completed on time, not because a boss is cracking a whip, but because a deadline is a promise. It powers the relationship where a partner's needs are considered, even when they are not explicitly stated. The gym floor is a microcosm of life reliability. We live in an era obsessed with visible performance. We track our lifts, post our mile times, and broadcast our achievements. But the act of cleaning a bench is invisible character. It is the foundation upon which the house of performance is built. You can squat 500 pounds, but if you leave the bar loaded with your ego for the next person to strip, you have revealed a structural deficit in your character that no amount of muscle can conceal. Ultimately, the bench is a mirror. It reflects not the shape of your deltoids, but the shape of your internal world. It asks a simple question: who are you when no one is looking? The answer does not lie in the sweat you left behind, but in the dry, clean surface you left for the stranger who comes after you. If you found value in looking at the ordinary world through this psychological lens, if you are the type of person who notices the small details and wonders what they mean, then this channel is built for you. We don't just look at what people do, we examine why they are. Subscribe to join a community of analytical thinkers and introspective minds committed to understanding the invisible architecture of human behavior.